Hi, welcome to this video. Today I'm trying to make a video on Giordano Bruno, who was supposed to be the earlier incarnation of Annie Besant. And today we're going to make an interesting study of the similarities between Annie Besant and Giordano Bruno. And you'll be amazed at how many similarities there are. All of the reference and books, reference and text is from Annie Besant's own book written on Giordano Bruno. So let me share my screen with you. And Giordano Bruno, of course, was very famous thanks to the fact that he was burnt on the stake. So here he is as a young man. Now he is considered theosophy's apostle in the 16th century because very, very amazing it is that his core doctrine is exactly what theosophy talks about. What were his beliefs that actually led him to his death? His theories on the infinite universe, because at that time it was a geocentric universe. The Earth was supposed to be the center of the universe. The sun and moon were all revolving around Earth. Then his theories on universal life, then his theories on immortality or the eternity of the human spirit, and on life heroic that leads to human perfection. So Bruno was born in an ordinary family, just like Annie Besant, in 1548, whereas Annie Besant was born in 1847. Bruno was born in Nola near Naples, Italy, and he used to love climbing the mountains nearby to look at this beautiful view that you see in front of you. This is Naples and the Mount Vesuvius, which is an active volcano then in the background. So at the age of 24, he had this choice. He had to choose what to do with his life. So he could either become a soldier or a monk. But he was always interested in studies. At that time, philosophy included religion and science. So he was always interested in studying science, philosophy, and religion. And so he thought that if I become a soldier, all I'll be doing is plundering and killing innocent lives. But being a monk, at least I will get a chance to read and read books and access to the library. So he joined a Dominican church, became a Dominican priest, and that's why you see him in that garb, in which he's very famous for being in that garb. So very similar again, because Annie Besant too in her early days was very interested in religion, was deeply studying the Catholic religion. And so in a few years, after joining the monastery, he soon had made many enemies because of his nature. He was constantly asking questions, asking to read forbidden reading material. And at that time, Aristotle was the supreme in the Christian church, whereas Bruno preferred the philosophy of Pythagoras and Plato. Pythagoras suggested that the sun was the center of our solar system, and also just before the Bruno was born, Copernicus also died thanks to his beliefs that the sun was the center of our solar system, not the earth. So from the beginning, there was this rebellious spirit in Bruno, and that rebellious spirit you see in Annie Besant too, because she rebelled against her husband's behavior, who was a very violent human being. And though they had two children by then, she refused to join the communion because she didn't believe in that custom of the communion. So that rebellious spirit was there in the very young 25-year-old Annie Besant too. And she was divorced at the age of 26 from her husband. So just like that, Bruno also had that rebellious spirit. Now he wrote a pamphlet called Noah's Ark. Again, this similarity where Annie Besant had also written a pamphlet called Fruits of Theosophy, which was about a very controversial subject. Now, what Bruno wrote in Noah's Ark was that he mocked the luxury and the ignorance of the monkish monks and the order, and he expressed sarcasm even at some specific monks. Now, exactly like that, Annie Besant wrote this pamphlet in 1878 or 79, no, 1879, and she in that the pamphlet was all about contraception. So she had co-authored it with Charles Bradlaugh, and they both had written that unless there is a reduction in the number of children, poverty will never cease. So that was the aim of that pamphlet, and in those times it was considered an indecent pamphlet. So they were in trouble for that, so much so that Annie Besant, who had the custody of one of her children, her daughter, she had lost the custody in the divorce from her husband of her son, but she had the custody of her daughter. But for her belief's sake, she stuck on to her beliefs. She did not withdraw that pamphlet or offer apology. She lost the custody of her daughter. What a great loss. Same thing happened to him. He, who had been studying for so many years as a monk, at the age of 28, 4 years he did spend studying as a monk. Thanks to this pamphlet, he was warned by his father, Anselm, who was guiding him, who loved him very much, who told him that you had better escape because your name has already gone to the Inquisition heads, and you are not safe here. You are going to be questioned, and if they question you, will you withdraw your ideas? So he said, no, I love the truth, and truth is all that matters to me. Again, the similarity between Besant. So then Bruno escaped overnight and went to Rome, and lived in a small, stayed in a small town called Noli, and finally he went to Switzerland in 1576 at the age of 28. Now Bruno then had reached Geneva in Switzerland, where Calvinism, which is a Protestant form of Christianity, was in vogue. But here too, Bruno got into trouble for speaking his mind and had to escape again. So here you see in my map, he literally had to walk with very maybe some animal transport from this point up to all the way up to Switzerland in the northwest. And let's now look at the religious ethos at that time. So it was accepted belief that the earth was the center of the entire world, and to contradict that was heretical. Because the reason why it was heretical is that there was this belief that not only the earth, the center, the stars are there above, and above the stars are heaven, and that's where the heavenly God lives, and that Christ had done all this sacrifice for humanity so that all of us would go and live in that heavenly level. So this entire concept of the earth being in the center was very important, because that much importance was given to humanity. So that is why the entire religious structure of Christianity was around these concepts. Now, to say that the earth is not the center and all is extremely heretical, and you can die for such things. Now, again, he had so many revolutionary ideas, and he was strong in those beliefs, and he didn't care for whether he was going to live or not. This is what Annie Besant says, that the mere change as to the relationship between earth and sun mattered little, but the change of relationship between man and God, the sacrifice of Christ for love of man, his victory over death and triumphant ascension to heaven, these mattered infinitely, for they were the charter and secured the immortality of man. So these notions gave power to the church, and to defy this was, of course, to quote death. So this is what Bruno says. He says, the earth with its inhabitants revolves and moves in space. The worlds are innumerable. The universe illimitable. Life incarnates everywhere in forms. Therefore, life is universal and on all sides creates living beings. This life, universal, omnipresent, infinite, doesn't it seem familiar? Is the universal being whom men have called God. On all sides inhabited worlds, everywhere living beings. Then death can only disintegrate bodies. It cannot touch life. Hence, the body has no value except as an instrument for a life which is deific, a life noble, loving, heroic, worthy of being a part of the life universal and divine. Fear, falsehood, baseness, these are the real ills of life. Dishonor is worse so than death, since dishonor stains the life, while death but breaks the form. So, you see, because of this level of strength he had, in his beliefs, he could face death so easily. At the age of 52, he was burnt on the stake. Now, such was a new moral basis corresponding to the new thought that Bruno offered to Christianity, with a certain naive expectation of a friendly response. He really hoped that people will see his new ideas. The eminence of God, the life universal animating all bodies, eternity of the spirit, etc. So now let's go further. So then he had to move again, thanks to the Calvinism that he was opposing. He had to again move from Geneva. This time he went to Lyons and to Toulouse in France. In Toulouse, again he got into trouble, and then he spoke on a podium. That's another thing. He was able. He had an enormous memory, and he was a fabulous orator, just like Besant was. Hence, Bruno finally went to Paris, and here he sought permission to teach philosophy in public lectures. And it was so interesting, those public lectures, that the King Henry III invited him and started talking to him, and became a regular. He was a regular invitee in the palace of Henry III, and they became really good friends. But then one day, when the king offered him a job as in the teaching job as a professor in the University of Paris, Bruno was still thrilled. But the king told him that one of the roles of that position is that he has to attend mass in church. He had to attend service. So again, Bruno stuck to his thinking. No, I will not attend anything. I don't believe in attending mass, and he declined the offer. So Bruno was really shocked, the king, in this, and he told him that he is not a theologian, he is a philosopher, and he could not go against his reasoning mind and follow the blind beliefs. So then the king asked him that, are you protesting against the Catholic Church? Then Bruno said, I am not a Catholic, nor am I a Calvin, nor a Huguenot Protestant. I am a philosopher, a man of science, and my thoughts fit into no creed I know. So then after that fall off with the king, the king did not do anything against him. In fact, he helped him. He sent him a recommendation letter to the court of the Queen Elizabeth, and under the protection of the French ambassador in England. And there he made some new friends who supported him. And it was again there he was able to talk about his ideas, the ideas of Copernicus and the ideas of Pythagoras, and all his theories about what life really meant. And of course, it was the same thing, which is very similar to what we study in theosophy. This one existence manifests itself in three modes. The first is thought. Thought is the substance of the universe. The act of divine thought, according to Bruno, is the substance of things, the root base of all particular things. And here his philosophy is similar to the Vedantic doctrine also. Then this was the first part through which the universe manifests itself. The second and third, in this thought, the substance are two elements, spirit and matter, which are the second and third hypostasis of the universal being. Spirit is positive, or the formative element, which informs and molds all. Matter is negative, or the receptive element, which becomes all. Again, we see the appearance of Indian thought, this time of Sankhya philosophy in Bruno's thinking. So you see, he developed these ideas from his studies, from his thinking. What an extraordinary thinker he was. So when Annie Besant read The Secret Doctrine, all this was already inside her. She had already, in the previous birth of Bruno, had already done all these deep researches and written books, because Bruno has written several books on these things, and knew this very well from deep inside her, these great truths. So here there is some more elements about his philosophy, and what are the other aspects of his philosophy, what is spirit, what is matter, what is the connection, and all that. And let's me read just one bit of it. There is no death for us, nor for any substance. Nothing substantially diminishes, but everything traveling through infinite space changes in appearance. So this is again exactly what we believe in theosophy. And again, the soul, let me read the last paragraph here. The soul which loves the object of sense binds itself by means of this love to the body. But the soul which loves beauty, goodness, and truth unites itself thereby to its inner God. So finally, he was in England for a while, but then he lectured in Oxford and he was branded an atheist. And once again, he had to run. This time he went back to France, and he was not able to take any side. He was a lone warrior. And in France, he stayed at this Whitsuntide small town in this palace. And very soon, there too, he was in trouble. This time, he had to move to Germany, to Marburg in Hesse, and he worked in the university there for some time. And then he was given an honorary doctorship. But when he was told that he will be given an honorary doctorship, but not allowed to teach in the university, he threw the doctorship on the face of the person who gave it to him and said, "I'm going." And once again, he left. This time he went to in Germany to Wittenberg, to a smaller town. And this was a city which had love for liberty of speech and love for literature. And for 2 years, he had the final 2 peaceful years of his life where he taught and he could express his ideas, and there was no threat against him. And there was no problem. But then 2 years later, a letter came from him from Italy, asking him to move back to Frankfurt. And this was something that which mystifies people, that why did he want to go back to Italy, knowing all that was against him. But he was hoping that all his ideas will be accepted sometime or the other. And by now he had spent 16 years away from his homeland. So maybe he was a little yearning for his home. So he eventually went back to Venice. And what then happened is that he was teaching his student there. But this, and in the Venetian waters, they used to go on this gondola ride under the sun, under the stars. And, they would talk about these divine topics. And what he didn't know is his student was quietly going and telling everything that Bruno was saying to somebody representing the inquisitors. And finally, they came to him, they caught him, they put him in the prison, and he had several trials against him. And he was in prison for 8 years, out of which he was in 6 years in Venice and 2 years in Rome, during which time he was writing, and he was hoping that his writings will reach the Pope and he will be forgiven. But eventually the trial was passed against him, that of being killed without shedding blood. Then the only way you can kill without shedding blood is either poison or burning. So he was going to be burnt. And when that reading was read out to him, this is what he famously said. He said, "You may be more afraid to bring that sentence against me than I am to accept it." See the courage of that man. And we see the same courageous spirit in Besant. So finally, there was a huge crowd against him, who went along shouting evil things at him. And there the contrast is very different. Annie Besant was very revered. There was no evil thing that happened to her like this. And she was respected till date, even now in India, a very respected figure. And that is finally, of course, here you see the picture of Bruno being taken. And on 17th February, which is marked also as Adyar Day, because it has many other auspicious connotations, this day was the day when Bruno was burnt. And they say that he was calm and serene till the end. Now, the beauty of it is that in 1889, very much when Annie Besant was alive, this statue was installed in the same square, the same piazza where he was burned, called Campo di Fiori. And there is a remarkable inscription written at the below the statue in Italian. It says, "To Bruno, from the generation he foresaw, here where the fire burnt." So they said that even Victor Hugo also contributed to the collection of money that was required to make this statue. And even till date, on February 17th, flowers are placed here as a symbol of freedom of speech and thought. What extraordinary thing this is. So all his life, he didn't give up on what he regarded as the truth. and chose death. So his voice will never be lost. Now you have that similarity again, because that's exactly what uh, Annie Besant wanted to be written in her epitaph, that she wanted to follow the truth. So in Annie Besant's word, though, what is the epitaph she'd like to give to Bruno? She'd like to give this epitaph to Bruno. To know how to die in 1 century is to live for all centuries to come. So Giordano Bruno, though he lost his life at the age of 52, his ideas, his books, his thoughts are still read and studied even till today. He is still alive among all people who love freedom of thought and scientific thinking. So, Bruno the Brave, for anyone who dares to voice dangerous ideas and risk imprisonment or exile, Giordano Bruno remains a hero. For as long as there are those who dare to voice their ideas aloud and are imprisoned or exiled for it, Bruno persists as a symbol of intellectual courage. Long may his flame burn. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope that this interests you to do more research. And thanks a lot. Bye.